I could just start. Ha ha ha
Ha, 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 ha. What's the...
There we go. That's the opening.
Is that the song in the movie?
Yeah. They played the whole movie.
Oh, the like Bella's themes?
Supermassive black hole. No, Eyes on Fire. That's what the song is called, but I don't remember the band name.
I don't know.
But it's just like they do it across the first Twilight movies. But like there's a chorus of people and they go like ha 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 ha.
Apparently it's Blue Foundation.
This did not stand out to me as much as it did for you.
I can't believe the banger soundtrack of Twilight is what like literally one of its redeeming qualities.
That's true. I was listening to it on the way over here.
Yeah, that's a good intro. Let's start talking.
Anyway,
about
this week we're talking about Twilight.
Yeah, you forgot to say the name of the thing you guys.
They'll get it from the song.
It's famous for only one movie.
We're going to
Twilight.
talk about today. We're going to talk about Twilight and the Twilight series, a series that had no popularity or controversy whatsoever in the overall
Ever.
pop culture of the entire world.
Ever, just deeply
It's actually
unproblematic.
weird
Yeah,
that we're
none
going to
at
be
all.
talking about it.
Yeah, nobody even remembers it.
Being an Indian, I second. Just kidding.
Oh my god, okay. So we're here today without any men whatsoever in the room, which is the most feminist possible we could ever make this podcast, because that's all that's required to be feminist is to have only women involved.
talking.
Talk to each other. Yeah, we really
Yeah.
easily passed that Bechdel test.
Yes.
We all have names.
Except we are going to be speaking a lot about men, so I don't know.
Almost exclusively.
Almost exclusively.
No, we'll talk about Bella. Also,
Bella doesn't
have a
in the
lot going
concept of vampires.
Bella's just
which
there.
Aren't inherent.
Things happen to Bella
Yeah,
in the
things
series
happen
of
to Bella.
Twilight.
That's
We
true.
will
There's
talk
a
about
weird
vampires.
That's the
mutant
perspective.
baby
I like
thing.
it.
That's true. We will
Right?
talk about the weird mutant baby a lot.
Yeah,
Because she's
I've
fascinating.
only seen things on like TikTok, and that's
Oh,
kind of
boy.
my window into this.
Oh, Fran.
So it's gonna be great. So welcome to The Lore You Know, a podcast where some friends dive into the fantastical and very often convoluted lore of media that we grew up with and knew tangentially and some of us loved. And here to bring you the mostly correct facts about made up things this week are me, Fran.
Me, Sammy.
Me, Liz.
And me, Sayali.
And welcome to the very special Galentine's episode of The Lore You Know, in which we are discussing Twilight, the series of movies and books. But of course, during this podcast, we're going to focus mostly on the movies, because we were not all going to sit down and reread those books.
I'll be honest, those books, I tried so hard because I knew they were very popular with my generation in high school. I could not get past the first 3 pages. So I'm sorry to everyone who loves it. I couldn't make it.
Fran, no,
That's
that's
fair.
that's a great starting point. That I was actually going to ask, what is everyone's individual histories with Twilight? Because this was completely inescapable at a pivotal point in our lives. We were all in high school.
So true.
So, Fran, is there any more to your history with Twilight? So you tried to read them.
Yeah, I tried reading them because I knew they were popular, and for some reason they were put on this same like pedestal as like Harry Potter versus Twilight, which just seems absurd in retrospect.
Yes.
And I was telling my husband about this yesterday, actually. Like, I tried to understand the pop culture of my generation. Okay, like I even bootlegged, torrented High School Musical at one point to understand the hype behind High School Musical, and I could watch it. You know, I
Thank
could
God,
actually
'cause I was gonna
watch and be
say-
like, okay, I get why people are
You
freaking
better
out,
not hate
but
on
this is
High
fine.
School Musical.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
High School Musical is just fine. I have no issues with it. I'm like, I get it. I'm just not that into it. That's fine. But like I said, Twilight, I literally couldn't make it through. But then I start seeing like TikToks with like clips of the video of the movies of
So
like
later in life.
women making their husbands watch it and stuff, and just like
Mhm.
reacting to it. And they just seem absurdist, which makes them probably more entertaining than the books.
Yeah,
And
Yes.
have their
very
own
fun.
cultural
for
impact,
sure.
I presume.
Yes.
So I'm excited to hear more. I just won't subject myself to it firsthand as a primary source.
So wait, Fran, to be clear, so you haven't read the books. You did try, but and you
Yeah.
have not seen the movies at all,
No,
except clips.
only
okay.
clips.
You are in for a real treat
You're in
today.
for a
I'm
treat.
excited. That's what I'm here for.
You're going to learn a lot.
Yes. Sammy, what about you?
I love the Twilight books and the movies. I started reading them in 8th grade. I believe I told my mom once, and she holds this over me forever, that it was the best book ever written. I used to read all of Stephanie Meyer's like blog post. I'm deep in it. I love it. I love it all.
I love that. And you've seen all the movies.
I've seen all the movies, and I've read all the books except for the illustrated guide.
Twilight.
Dang. I
Of course, there's an illustrated guide.
yes. I came a little late into the Twilight series because I started reading the series after the first movie came out when we were in high school, and for me it was a matter of FOMO. I was like, I gotta be on top of the pop culture moment, so I'm going to read these. And as a high schooler, I didn't dislike them. I basically enjoyed it, but I also didn't love it to the degree that was happening among
that
other
was a
people.
middle school energy specifically.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah, so I liked it, and I liked seeing the movies too, but I wasn't a super fan or anything. And in fact, I even at the time recognized the problems with it. Not on a very shallow level though, but I could recognize some of the things Edward does are kind of weird.
Really bad.
And I didn't really like what Jacob did either. So, and then also I went through a phase where I was I would defend Twilight in a way because, and I still would, only for this sense of it that Twilight got a lot of hate for simply being something girls liked,
Yes.
young girls liked.
Mhm.
And I,
Sure.
in that case, was a staunch defender of it. That I was there are plenty of normal reasons to dislike
Yeah.
Twilight besides that girls like it. But that's about it as far as defending it.
So just defending it to be you need to critique it better.
Yeah, it's, I mean, again, yeah, people were
It's not hard to do
very-
that.
especially at the time of when we were in high school, people were very against Twilight
Yeah.
as a concept, and it was literally simply because girls liked it.
Mhm.
So, Sayali,
Oh
what
my
about
God.
you?
My case is a little different, not too different, but I was in India at this point in high school ish, and everyone was reading Twilight books, and I was really intrigued by it. I was like, what is this hype about? So I read the first book and I kind of liked it. It was like a fantasy, all right, love story, blah blah blah, right up my alley. And then I moved on to New Moon, and that was the boringest book I've ever read, and I dropped it completely until the movies came out, or probably the movies had come out already, but they always came out later in India,
Right.
not always at the same time. So whenever I got to see them, I liked the movies, but if you ask me now, they're really cringy.
Deeply.
In a good way.
That's the
In a
charm
good
of
way.
it.
So embarrassing.
I was ready to watch it all over again just to mock them.
Oh yeah, that's the only
That's
reason
what I
people
do.
watch
Yeah.
them. Yeah, that's the only reason people watch the Twilight movies. I think the reaction to Twilight among people who loved it back in the day now are very self-aware.
Yes.
I think everyone has grown to the point of that they like the movies because they are so
Just
crazy
terrible.
bad
Yeah,
and
yes.
silly.
Yes.
Over the
and
top.
Everybody,
Agreed.
yeah, and I think everybody is on the same page at this point, and that they're yeah, they're wild, they're messed up, they're problematic, super fun to watch.
So, Sammy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, since you were in it. But from my understanding, in terms of timing, Harry Potter and Twilight are similar in certain ways because of their fandoms. Because Harry Potter fandom was at that beginning stages of the internet in the early thousands, right? Where we had message boards and people learned I can make message boards for specific fandoms and people can come together and talk about it across the world. We learned about chatbots, can do trivia, all this stuff, fan sites. And then, if I remember correctly, didn't Twilight kind of coincide with Tumblr?
I
And
think
stuff?
so.
And
I
those
was
types of social media.
I was
Probably.
never
That probably
huge into
helped.
Tumblr, but yeah, I think that, and Stephanie Meyer had a very active website for,
Yeah,
I
blogs
think,
and-
yeah, she posted stuff
Yeah.
all the time. So I think that
So
really got
it's-
people more into it.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like a perfect storm of that time, which makes it like kind of that
Mm-hmm.
of the time zeitgeist of the evolution of the social internet, right? And
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
kind of how it kind of perpetuated its popularity back then, because you could share, you could talk, you
Yes.
could do fan fiction, you
Oh,
could
yeah.
Oh,
Yup.
yeah.
fan
Yup.
art, deviant
I-
art, all these websites.
I think a lot of people would begrudgingly admit this, that Twilight completely changed pop culture in
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
Mhm.
It was it's a defining moment of pop culture, American pop culture at least, in our lifetime for sure. And I mean, the popular things that came out post Twilight, almost all of them had some sort of like connection to it or were affected by it in some way, because especially the publishing industry
Yes.
of young
yes.
adult romance books was never the same. I don't think has ever
Yep.
actually
No.
been the same since.
I'd agree with that. I definitely
everyone
think
Wasn't
Twilight
pushed-
even
kicked it
allowed
off.
to read something like that.
Everyone pushed the love triangle after this book. It was always like a thing. It's not like
Yeah.
Twilight invented this, a love triangle, but like this became the defining part of every young adult book has to have a love triangle.
That's an
Yep.
interesting
Yes.
fact, Lizzy.
I mean, it's not like it's just something that happened.
Yeah, I didn't know
yeah.
this.
I don't think like
Well-
I've heard from some authors, they've admitted in interviews that they did not initially have a love triangle in their book, and their publisher made them add it because of the success of
Wow.
Twilight. The best example
Oh, wow.
is the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games
yeah.
initially, she had not written
Really?
there to be any tension between,
Wow.
I don't remember his name. Is it
Peter or Gale?
Gale?
Ida.
Yeah, no, she initially had not written anything to be at all between Gale and
Oh,
Katniss.
interesting.
And they made her
Huh.
add that in.
Wow.
Girls are just
Interesting.
like thirsty for that love triangle.
Yes.
Interesting,
Oh, that-
And I was
that
one
age.
of them.
I
So.
I was gonna say I'm
I
not
agree.
against love triangles. I'm not against
Well-
it. It just happened to be like forcibly put into a lot of things after post Twilight.
Twilight also changed how people thought about like monsters and stuff. Like vampires were like
yeah.
not
Yeah.
the same after that.
Also, there were so many books that came out after Twilight that were like girl and monster,
Yes.
like Monster Guy.
Yeah. Well, the young adult like field in like publishing, you're saying, this is one of my little soapboxes that I've had
sure.
since the start of my career, is that it's fantasy and also just the young adult genre in general.
Yes.
Because like the fantasy genre, there wasn't a lot for kids or young adults in general. Before like Harry Potter, it was like Phantom Tollbooth, good time. And
Mhm.
then you got to read The Hobbit,
Mhm.
and then skip on over to Ender's Game, and now you're in Lord of the Rings. Like,
you're
that's
missing
pretty much
Warrior
all you have.
Cats, but yeah.
Well, Warrior Cats wasn't around.
It wasn't young adult. It
For-
was mid grade,
yeah.
middle grade.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of where Harry Potter started too. And so that the young adult, teenage, high school age range has never like really been a target demographic. And I would
Yes.
definitely agree that Twilight definitely catapulted it. Because
Yes.
after that was published, the young adult section in the bookstores have, well, the bookstores that are left, right?
Right.
Really just expanded. And like you're right. Publishers were like, well, Twilight's successful. So we want all of the books that we publish to be like Twilight.
Yes.
And then the next big popular franchise of Hunger Games came along. And now, okay, everything's going to
Everything
be
has
a battle
like Hunger
royale.
Games.
Yeah,
Everyone's going to have to fight. You know?
Yeah.
And so it keeps going into the cycle because the publishers didn't have a plan for young adult. And now finally the genre is kind of expanding on its own without needing those pillars.
Yeah. And what's crazy that like Twilight wasn't the first to do anything that's in its book that made it so popular. I
Yeah.
mean, like even Twilight was inspired by Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Buffy
Yeah.
and Angel, who are a
Yeah.
human and vampire relationship. So like nothing was like new. It just exploded.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just the context of Twilight, we all have to admit that it changed everything.
It was important.
Yes.
For-
I can
for better or
appreciate
for
its
worse.
legacy.
benchmark.
Yes, it's
For
a
sure.
benchmark for sure. But that's a great setup going into the actual plot of this series, which, as we said, was the book. The books came out. I think the books were coming out as the movies started coming out. I can't remember if like the last book was released while like the first and second movies were coming out.
I wouldn't know.
I think the
I don't
first
really have
3
memory.
books were released before the movies, but I don't remember Breaking Dawn.
I think most of them were out before the movies, at least. But so the books came out, the movie series came out, and then because of its success, then there were some other things here and there, like a retelling of the first book of Twilight from Edward's perspective, called Midnight Sun, and then a gender swapped version of Twilight. What is that one called?
It's called Life and Death.
Life and Death came out in like
So unaware of
2015.
these.
And
Okay.
there was a novella based on a character from the series.
All written by Stephanie Meyer?
Yes.
Oh,
And there was a
all right.
manga not written
Get it,
by
girl.
or drawn by Stephanie. That would be cool.
I would like to see that.
I'd like to see that. She had a lot of plans for other media, like in stories from the Twilight universe, but we have yet to see them. And maybe we will, maybe we won't.
I'm still
Who
waiting.
knows?
I'm ready.
But we are going to cover, audience, we're going to cover mostly the movies, as none of us were going to sit and reread all those books. But we will touch on some details that were left out of the movies. For the most part, the movies are pretty accurate in terms of adaptation. Like,
Oh, goodness.
there was
Oh,
not
that's
really
scary.
any changes. It was just mostly that they had to leave things out for time and
Yeah.
such. So, Fran, what you're about to hear, this is Twilight.
I'm
This is
concerned
Twilight.
that those movies are like actually some mostly accurate adaptations.
They are accurate
They're-
in just that they left things out because they couldn't fit everything in.
Yeah.
I will say the movie's
wow.
tone is different than the book's tone. Like the books are a little bit more fun, and the
Sure,
movie is
I
like
would
very
feel
They
that.
try
soap
to make the movies
soap
pretty
opera-y.
serious.
Yeah.
I would see that, yeah.
With the
Character
moody
building,
Instagram
reading
filter.
the book is better than
Yeah.
watching.
I mean, there's
the
there's more
movies.
time to
Yes.
build the characters in the books, too. Yeah.
Apparently Stephanie Meyer's Mormon.
Yeah.
Side
Oh,
note.
yeah.
That's
shit.
it makes
was
a
gonna
lot of
say
sense
that,
once
yeah.
you know this about
I was
her.
going to say that. It makes so much sense.
She went to Brigham Young.
Yeah, it makes so much sense when the way she portrays relationships and such.
And-
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
that gives some good context.
Yeah.
She's
I
a
used
part
forgot
to
of
to
the
say that.
Organization for Latter-day Saint Female Writers.
She sponsored a lot of like Mormon youth events in Arizona.
Great. Yeah.
Well, I hope her book's on the approved list for all of those teenagers then.
Probably not,
Not.
honestly.
So let's start with obviously book 1/movie 1, which is Twilight. In this movie, we are introduced to Bella Swan. She is from Phoenix, Arizona. Where she has been living with her mom and her stepdad. I don't remember if her mom has married this guy yet.
they got married.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phil.
Phil.
Yep.
Renee and Phil. But Phil is a baseball player and will be traveling a lot. And in order to not have Bella, a high schooler, traveling a lot with them, she goes to live with her dad, Charlie, in Forks, Washington. A real
Okay.
place. Ballsy move for a author to base it on a real place and
Stephanie-
totally warp that town for the rest of forever.
Stephanie Meyer found it by just Googling what's the rainiest place in the continental United States, and Forks came up. And so she went, that's where my book
Forks,
is set.
Washington.
Is that a
Man, the-
fact that
the
she
progress
did
of
that?
the
I'm pretty
internet.
sure that's what she did.
Stephanie Meyer did a lot of stuff on a whim and a Google search. We'll find out.
A trailblazer for us all.
Wow. Oh God.
yeah.
Yep.
So she moves to Forks with her dad, Charlie, who is, as we will learn, the best character in the entire series.
Mhm, swear
Though
to
he
God.
falls so
Yes.
much
The
at one point.
most normal character in the entire
He's
series.
the sweetest guy ever.
He's the town police chief, and Forks is a very small town. I can't remember what the population says. It's like
Oh, I can't
shown
remember
on the
either.
sign when she drives in, but it's small. And she shows up, and the town of Forks is also adjacent to the Quileute Indian Reservation. and there is a large population of Native American people there in town, including a old family friends, the Black family. So we also get to meet Jacob Black, and his dad, Billy Black. And Billy Black and Charlie are like BFFs. And Bella like vaguely remembers Jacob because she would come to Forks in the summers when she was young growing up, and she would sometimes play with Jacob. I believe Jacob is 14 or 15.
He's 2 years younger.
Yeah, he's 2 years younger. So he's 15 and Bella's 17.
Because Bella played with his older sisters when they were
Okay.
in the summer more than she played with Jacob.
But they kind of they get reacquainted. One of my favorite parts of Twilight the movie is they bring Bella a truck, a really old truck that Jacob's like very good at like fixing up old cars and such, and
15-year-old mechanic.
And he and his dad bring Bella a truck to be able to drive to school and such, because Charlie is the police chief, so it's not something he can really do too often. And she's really excited in the movie. She like opens the door and like hits Jacob. He's like, "Oh,
I know, yeah."
And she goes like, "Oh, sorry." And that's just like in the movie as a moment
so
that for
good.
some reason is so funny.
I think they were trying to show like, oh, Bella's really clumsy, because that's like her most defining feature.
Yeah.
Oh, she's so clumsy.
She's so clumsy.
That is her character.
Yes,
That is her.
It doesn't super come across in
right.
the movies, but it is described a lot, like at length in the book. She's clumsy.
We do see her playing like volleyball at one point, and she's like hitting people in the
like,
face. And, like...
So she's like clumsy. She's so clumsy, and she's so like plain. Like she describes herself as like not ugly, but like just so, you know,
average.
like average white girl,
Yeah.
which is so contradicted by the way people treat her. It's so funny. She goes to school, for example, and immediately every boy in the vicinity is like so
school.
into her.
My
Even
God,
though she's
Bella.
like, number one, she is so, especially how Kristen Stewart portrays her in the movie, she is so like stoic and boring and brooding and like
aloof
awkward
and,
and aloof and like
She-
every
to be fair,
guy.
And she has a thing with her head or neck,
She's
whatever.
she always
just, like,
Kristen
and
Stewart
always
shakes when
tucking-
she speaks as her for some reason.
tucking her hair behind her ear, kind of like doing.
She just was like,
I don't know, something.
I don't know.
That's a really good impression of her. I can't even do it. That was perfect.
That's just how she.
To be fair, for those
That's
small
what she
town
does.
high school boys,
They didn't have a lot of
she's
choice.
the newest girl to come across them in probably their entire lives.
It's just
So
wild.
I think it's
because-
more of the novelty
Potentially.
that is her attractiveness for them.
Well, like, also it's just so funny, like, this group of high school friends just, like, immediately adopt her, even though she has no personality whatsoever
Yes.
either. They're just like, oh, you're our
Novelty
friend
doesn't
now.
work.
Yeah, they're trying to increase their cool factor by having the new girl with them.
Anna
Yes.
Kendrick is one of those people in the movie.
But Stephanie Meyer has
Oh, that's
created
right. Anna Kendrick's in the movies. I
Yes.
completely forgot.
every dude in the school has a woman who is into him.
Yes.
Like every single one of them, but they're all like,
Yes.
no.
Yeah, they're like,
you
"Ugh,
gotta go for Bella.
I just really like how uninteresting she is. And so plain. I guess that's how Bella is. Like, I remember
That's
in
how
the
she
books,
presents
she
herself,
really
yeah.
describes herself also like as an uninteresting and boring and not pretty person.
She's like, I just like to read and
Her
I
s-
don't really want to do things.
so it's setting up a
You
very
said that in the real Bella tone.
a very
yes.
critically problematic point of the relationship is Bella has no self-worth whatsoever. We are learning that quickly.
Yep.
Thinks very low of herself.
Yeah. She's got to work on that.
It's so
before she-
weird because it's so
She
like
has issues.
it's so like not like so negative that she like hates herself, but she just so doesn't think
She's just really
highly of
accepted it. She's
herself.
like, I'm boring.
Yeah, she's
what
like,
can
I
you do?
guess I'm just uninteresting.
Nobody will like
Yeah,
me, but
yeah.
what can you do?
And then everyone likes her.
And-
So she then also one of my favorite parts of the movies. Bella goes into her first science class. And she At her
Is this where Edward is introduced?
Yes, with an empty spot next to him is sitting Edward Cullen. And when she walks into the room, he tenses and immediately covers his mouth.
Well, not only she walks into the room in front of this giant fan that
yeah.
just blows her hair, I guess, at him.
Yeah.
And he goes like and like
I've seen this scene on TikTok. I have seen.
The first time I watched that scene, I thought he was nauseous, and he wanted to puke. That's
how he acts.
That she smelled so freaking bad.
That's what she
that
thinks.
He wanted to just like run away, and that's what she thinks.
That's what she thinks. She's like concerned that she's like, do I smell bad?
Bella, I think, does do a really fun
she
like,
does.
like a little quick
movie.
sniff check.
I do not remember how that played out in the book, except I know in the book she was equally upset by like how put off.
Reacted.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like later even she goes to the office for some reason of the school, and
she
when
had
she
to like sign her paper, have all her teachers sign her thing. I don't know,
something like that. It's her
kind
first
of
day,
contrived.
It's her first day at school.
Yeah.
Making sure she arrived at all her classes or something.
Yeah. But Edward is in the school office and he is like pleading with the people to be switched out of science. He's like, there must be something, anything. I just can't be in there.
And then they say no, and he says while he's leaving and Bella's right there, I guess I'll just have to endure it. I'm like, damn, that's so brutal.
At that point, Bella's just like, she's so like offended because she's like,
all right,
what
have I done?
What have I done to this guy?
Yeah.
I mean, so technically before all of this happened, though, she did get like a brief introduction to who Edward Cullen was. She's sitting in the cafeteria with her friends, her new friends that like her for some reason. And the Cullens walk in like single file into the cafeteria.
It's very convenient for introducing them one by one.
Yeah, it's like, come in a line. Yeah.
And her friends are like, oh, those are the Cullens. They introduce us to this family of the Cullens, who are a very wealthy family in Forks. Everybody knows them, especially because they're also all like stunningly handsome or beautiful.
Extremely pale.
Mysterious because they don't interact really with anybody else. They really stick to themselves. And also, I feel like nobody addresses how weird this is in the movie. They're like, and they're also all like together. Like all of the teens,
they're all paired up.
They're all like in relationships.
Yes.
And they're just like, isn't that cool and interesting? And like, it's kind of like, no, that's really weird. What?
One of them says like, isn't that illegal? And then the other girl goes like, no, they're just step siblings, so it's fine.
So
and then
fine.
we're just like over that.
Oh, okay.
All right. I guess
okay, so it's fine. Yeah, they're like.
I mean, maybe this is where the Latter-day Saint background comes in.
I don't know. So like they're like, well, Carlisle, the patriarch of the family, he's one of the main doctors in town as well. He's like a foster dad / he just adopts children and teens or whatever. And then all the teens seem to also like get together. And like one of the girls is even like, maybe he'll adopt me.
Don't they introduce him like / matchmaker?
Yeah, they're like, he's like a foster dad / matchmaker. Yeah. And it's all like, this is so weird.
And
what?
That is a very strange
what I love about it is
of
we'll
the community.
Get more into like the vampire background, but that is essentially what Carlisle is actually doing. Is he'll be like, oh, my son is lonely. I must make him a partner.
I must make him a bride.
Yes.
I think, I mean, like, he's making a family.
Yes.
As we learn later, like, vampires, I mean, this is basic vampire lore that they usually have a coven.
Yeah.
Which is generally not people they're related to, but people they've chosen to be, like, either just, like, partners in a way, or, like, actually family. And most of the cases of the Twilight series covens, they are, like, have made each other their family. Because who else is going to be your family besides other immortal people?
Fair.
So I mean, like, it makes sense to me that you would make like a bonded group of people that you're gonna be together with forever.
Yeah, and look out for
Yeah.
each other. Yeah.
But I mean, like, especially to the way this set up
But
to outsiders is very weird that there's all these step siblings dating each other and they
Yeah.
go to school.
And Carlisle in the books was turned into a vampire when he was like 23, I think. So he looks like a 23-year-old with a bunch of like 16 to 17 or 17 to 18-year-old kids, and it's like nobody's questioning this.
Yeah,
Well, but some of them look
he looks
way
more age
older
appropriate
than
in the movie.
he looks
Yeah.
more age appropriate.
Yeah,
But in the movie, some of them look way older than
than
what
others.
they're supposed to be
Oh,
in
yeah,
high school.
They all look like not high schoolers.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
that's
to be
Hollywood,
fair, that's
though.
just a symptom of Hollywood.
Yeah,
the
that's
depiction of
Hollywood.
high
They played,
schoolers.
yeah, adults played teenagers.
But they all just go to high school, apparently. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So Bella had this little intro to the Cullens before that horrible interaction with Edward, but like she had also had the setup of, well, so there's Rosalie and Emmett, they are together. There is Alice and Jasper
Mhm.
also together, and then there's Edward, who
By
is
himself.
by himself.
Aw.
He does not have
Most
does not
eligible
have a
bachelor.
step sibling partner
Yet.
Yeah.
yet. It's just him, and obviously all the girls like show that like, oh, he's so dreamy, he's so interesting and mysterious and
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
handsome.
But
Pale.
he's not
But
interested
he
in any
just
of
hasn't
us.
seen interested. I love that moment in the movie that Anna Kendrick character is like, I guess he's just too good for any of us
Yeah.
people, and then like
Us
he like
people.
smirks.
Yeah.
He like smirks. I love that. Well, so Bella's very distraught by this very bizarre interaction, but goes on with her life until one day Edward is randomly back in the classroom
Because he leaves.
because he is
Just
then
doesn't go to
gone.
school for
Yeah.
like a week or
Yeah.
however long.
Yeah, he like is not at school for several days at
several
least. And Bella notices, especially because she's like, "What the fuck did I do to this man, to this guy?" And so finally he returns to school, and Bella's very just like, she treats us very like cautiously, and is like, "Okay, he's back," and he seems like way more chill than
He's, like,
last.
Overly nice to her.
Yes, she
Why,
sits down.
hello.
Yeah, she sits down next to him and he's like, "Hello, my name's Edward Cullen." Says it like that's like literally it's like so like low and monotone.
How are you? Very
The way
like
he says-
pleasantries.
The way
Yeah.
he says hello in the movie is so like he's like, "Hello." Hello. It's so strange. So like he
Ugh.
seemed I think
And he tries to. He's like smiling a little bit.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
I
he's-
think to Robert Pattinson's credit, he does a good job of portraying Edward is very strained.
Yeah.
And
Like,
like we
really
find out,
uncomfortable.
yeah, like he seems so uncomfortable, and like we find out, as we'll find out, he has a reason to. But like, Robert Pattinson does a good job. He does seem very strained, like he's tense and like trying
Yeah.
very hard to like be pleasant and such.
He also blurred out weird things.
Yeah, so
which
then,
he's
like-
not supposed to, and
Yeah, like he
So
follows, he
dumb.
kind of
It's-
follows Bella around, like still being like weirdly overly nice, and he's like
Stop.
asking her questions about herself. That's like way more like.
Why'd you
especially
move-
for
why'd
a
you move
high
to
school
Forks?
boy, it's so
Yeah.
weird. Like he's like, so why are you here in Forks? And like saying things like, so your mother is traveling and you're here with your dad, like repeating like facts to her, and she's just so like, yeah,
Yes?
yeah,
Why-
okay.
why are
But
you
he'll
so
also like
interested
make
in my
assumptions, and he'll be
life?
like, "Oh, so you're doing this because you don't like your new stepdad?" And she'll be like, "No."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's being very like weirdly over the top, like interested in
Yeah.
Goodness.
how she's thinking, and
Bella
like,
also around this time notices that his eyes colors have
oh
changed.
yes,
Yes.
she's like, the first time I saw you, your eyes were like dark, and now they're like gold, and he's like, in the movie he says like it's the fluorescent lighting.
And then just like walks away.
He walks away. He's like, no, in the movie he says it's the fluorescence.
It's the
And then
fluorescence.
he walks away.
And then, yeah, so awkward, so,
so funny.
awkward.
But he also like in that before he gets there, she's like, why are you so interested in me? And he says like, I'm just trying to figure you out, which is really weird to say.
Again, he says weird things, really
All the
awkward
time.
things.
Yeah.
All the
They're
time.
like, just noticing your eyes. And it's the fluorescence. Leaves.
the-
He immediately leaves without another word.
So they're like kind of friends, but kind of not friends.
They're having
and-
very weird interactions.
Yes.
But Bella
Unfortunately, no boys like this.
no boys act like this.
Yeah.
Yes,
He's not like other
Ugh.
boys. Bella kind of likes that.
exactly.
Bella's like, wow, I'm not like other girls.
He's
Also,
Oh no.
so this all leads to Bella's curious about them, and she's hanging out with Jacob at another point. Who she still is so like very like just acquaintance level with. But Jacob's like, oh yeah, the Cullens. My tribe has a history with them. And she's like,
Oh.
really? And at least in this movie, all we get out of it is that Jacob reveals that, yeah, the Cullens are not allowed on the reservation because of this older history
Reasons.
of like my ancestors, like not too far
like
history.
grandparents.
Like grandparents, I
Yeah.
think he establishes his grandparents and
Yeah.
like the Cullens' grandparents made a treaty long ago that like they were caught hunting on their land, and they made a treaty together that the Cullens were no longer allowed, and
Okay.
that has apparently stood. And
Persisted.
yeah,
There
so-
is a funny joke where they're like, well, that would be too long ago for the Cullens. And he was like, or like, is it the
Or
same
is
one?
it?
Is it?
Whoa.
Yeah.
And then he laughs because Jacob is like, this
yeah,
is
Jacob
land
doesn't
of
believe
legend.
it. Yeah, Jacob at this point is still like, like Native American legend. and
It's
stuff.
just a
So
story,
silly.
Bella.
Yeah. He literally says that. It's just
Yeah.
a story, Bella.
Yeah, it's just a story, Bella.
Bella also has to flirt with him to get this information out of it.
Oh my
and
god,
it's
I
so
forgot.
funny
That
because
is
she's
true.
not good at it, but it was enough to work.
Yeah, because Jacob's 15. It's a 15-year-old boy. So we have that context as well. This leads up to Bella is in the parking lot at school, and it's a wet, rainy day, as it always is in Forks, and another one of her friend is pulling into the parking lot in his car when his car loses control, sliding on the wet pavement. His car is sliding directly towards Bella. And before this, she had been standing kind of thinking about the Cullens, standing in the parking lot by herself.
Yeah.
And she had spied Edward and some of the other Cullens like coming out of the school, which was like a good distance away from where she was in the parking lot.
Yeah.
The car comes towards her, and immediately it is stopped by Edward jumping in front of her, and he like puts his hands between the car and
just
her
crushes
car,
the car.
and it
Yeah.
crushes both of them. Then there's a huge dent in
Oh.
both of them. And like he and Bella make eye
dramatic.
contact, and he looks at
Yeah.
her like so threateningly.
Yeah.
He's
And
like
then
frenzied.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, and then he gets up and leaves, and Bella's
Yeah.
just
He
"Well,"
jumps over
Yeah.
the cars and
Yeah.
just walks
but
away.
also somehow no one sees that.
Exactly. Nobody sees him jumping
And
out
Bella
of that
is literally on
tiny
the ground
space.
like,
It's
oh my god.
Because he like
Almost
had to move
died.
her body around so that
Yeah.
things weren't
shit,
falling on
Bella's
her.
just speechless.
I mean,
and stunned by whatever happened
Why-
so fast.
Who wouldn't
That's
be?
fair. Yeah.
What the heck? And how
It
did
all
he
happened
come
so
here?
fast,
And
too.
what's going on?
Well, she also like had seen him like
Yes.
far away
She's-
leading up to
She's
that.
confused with what just happened.
And yeah, Edward just doesn't say
Leaves.
anything
Again,
and leaves.
leaves.
And then everyone runs up to
I mean, what
like,
else is he
see her.
supposed to do? Honestly.
Yeah. So she's taken to the hospital, and Carlisle treats her. We get to meet Carlisle officially.
The daddy vampire.
Yeah, the daddy
Yeah.
vampire. We don't know
Daddy
yet.
vampire.
I'm sorry, spoilers.
He's also I like she, yeah. She also describes. I remember in the book she describes him as being like, "Wow, he's like such a hot old guy."
Yes.
Hot older guy. Dang, he's so. I remember, like, I think she describes him almost to the same degree as how handsome Edward is. Like, she's
Yeah.
like, Carlisle is like
It's hot.
the hottest dad I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
Which I mean,
It's important.
it's important.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
But
Yeah.
I
Yes,
think
it is
It's
important.
important for
I
me
think
to
important
know
to
that he's a hot
establish-
daddy
Yeah.
vampire.
I think important to establish that Charlie kind of has a relationship with Carlisle. Charlie, Bella's dad, he trusts him a lot,
Yeah.
and Carlisle often is like is on the scene of like crimes, doing
Yeah.
like the medical part and like exhuming bodies or whatever.
Yeah, Charlie really respects Carlisle
Yes.
because he's like a really good doctor, but has decided to live in this like teensy town,
Yes.
not getting paid much at all.
Yeah, Charlie really likes Carlisle and therefore is like pretty respectful of the Cullens in general. Even though he doesn't know the rest of them, he just is like, yeah. Carlisle is great.
Which I would say is different than many other people in the town who are like, those are
The Cullens are
weirdos.
weird. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Charlie
So-
is aware of their reputation, but he's like, well, Carlisle is like the best. So, which is pretty much the rest of the series. Everyone thinks Carlisle is the best guy ever, which I think he just kind of is. He's just a great guy. So,
So I do have a question that's unrelated, kind of related.
yeah.
Do they live in the rainiest place in America because the sun's not out
Yes.
very
Yes,
often?
Yeah.
that is
Yes,
why
Fran.
Stephanie
Okay,
Meyer
this-
You figured
Googled
it
that.
out. Yes. So, Bella continues to have like some interactions with Edward that are weird, but it like kind of increasingly more like warm and flirtatious.
But also a good amount of gaslighting.
Yes.
Because Edward's always like, I was standing right next to you
Yeah,
when that
Edward
car
just
came.
like denies that happened. He's like, you hit your head. And
Oh,
she-
So the gaslighting begins pretty early in this
yeah,
series.
he's just like,
Ah.
you're crazy. You hit your head. I was right next to you when that happened. And also that he ends that conversation with, well, no one's going to believe you.
Yeah, exactly. Again, saying awkward things that he's not supposed to say. He's a weirdo.
And Bella's like, this is so interesting. I must get closer to
Yeah,
this.
She's
This
so
is
like,
such
I
2007
am
bullshit.
she like straight becomes like, this is so weird to like, I'm obsessed with this guy.
Yes.
There is like no transition. It's
Oh,
just like,
girl.
she's just
God,
like, I
Bella.
gotta know everything about him.
Yeah. So
Oh, God.
mysterious. No one will believe me. Okay.
I love that he was trying to convince her and then just went
It's
to,
like-
well, no one's gonna believe you.
Yeah.
Bella's reaction in her head is, or I think she may actually say this time, she's like, well, I wouldn't tell anyone anyway.
Yeah.
What? Why are you defending this man?
To a normal person, that is like red flags all over.
It's so bad. It's so
You know
funny.
what? The transition from Twilight into 50 Shades of Grey makes a lot
Oh
of sense.
yeah.
yeah.
Just from this scene alone.
Listeners
Yeah,
who
no.
don't know 50 Shades of Grey, I feel like everybody knows this, but 50 Shades of Grey is fan
Was
fiction
fan fiction.
of Twilight
Yeah.
that they just changed the names in order for it to be published as a book series.
So
So if you
fun.
didn't know that, fun fact.
Took out the vampire part of it.
Yeah, I mean,
And
he's not
put in a lot more
vampire.
premarital sex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
It's an
Yeah.
alternate universe situation.
That's a
you know.
good
Yeah.
gist of the
That's the difference.
50 Shades of
Yeah.
Grey all
Yeah.
together.
Oh,
my
I want to note that while all of this is happening, people are like mysteriously
Yes.
dying or going missing on hikes. That's just sort of like in the background
that keeps
because
getting
Charlie's
sprinkled in. 'cause
Charlie's working on the
Yeah.
investigation for it.
Charlie's the police
Is
chief.
it locals that are disappearing, or just like
Yes.
Yeah.
people
Some
coming
of them
to go
are.
hiking?
Some of them are like tourists, I think. that
Yeah,
are
it's,
hiking
Apparently
it's
around.
they
people
say
in the
it's-
area.
Yeah. Apparently
Okay.
they say it was an animal attack.
Yeah, so people
That has
keep
been happening
being
around
killed in a
town.
way that the police are like, this is a animal, like a bear or a cougar, which is plausible for the area. But
And
like,
Mhm.
conveniently, Daddy Vampire's the autopsy guy.
yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
Yes.
weird.
Before we
Wild.
get to kind of like a turning point of the Cullens eventually find out, yes, that like of course this is vampires doing this. It's not them. But like before we get to that point, we have like one last kind of pivotal thing that happens between Bella and Edward, which is that Bella went like into the city to go dress shopping with her friends because prom is going to be at the end of this book. A great place
Of
to
course.
end. A great place to end a book. You know, we're building towards prom. The stakes are high. Oh yeah. Also, Bella got asked to prom by
Everybody.
Three
Because
guys.
Tyler, the guy who almost hit her in the car, used that as his move to be like, I want to make it up to you.
I'll take
Will
you to prom."
I'll take you to prom.
To be fair, that's pretty good high school boy.
Yeah, that
line
does
of
seem in
thinking.
line.
Yeah.
But she turns them
She
all
turns
down.
them all down. She doesn't want to go to prom. She's not like
She's
other
not
girls.
interested.
But she's going to go
in
prom
Yeah.
dress shopping.
But she does go dress shopping with her friends,
Well,
which
she's
is
not really-
nice.
Well, she has an alternative
Yes.
motive.
She
Yeah.
wants to go to a bookshop in the city that is a Quileute bookshop that would have legends that she can potentially read because she thinks the Quileute tribe has more information about the Cullens potentially.
There is, before she does this, a
Okay.
very funny like scene in the movie where it's just her Googling like really strong, pale,
Really strong, pale,
Fast.
handsome, fast.
beautiful.
Weird. Awkward.
Well, so she wants to go to a bookshop, so she goes to the city with her friends. Ultimately, there is a group of ne'er-do-wells who, because Bella parts from her friends to go to the bookshop, and a group of ne'er-do-wells who corner Bella in like an alley
Because she gets lost.
because she's
leaving.
What
lost.
city
and like
are they
She's
in?
this
Seattle?
beautiful,
They're in
Like-
Port
attractive
Angeles.
person.
Port Angeles,
Okay.
which
So
apparently
not
has a
even
lot of
Seattle.
crime.
In the book series, it is crime ridden, I
Was-
think.
Was this also one of the Google facts that she used in her books?
No,
as
I
a
think that one
plot?
is one she just made up. I
Okay.
think Port Angeles
So
is
Port
pretty
Angeles
small.
is not real or is real?
I think it's real. I just don't think it's that big. It's just bigger than Forks, and she just like looked up a
That doesn't
place
seem
that was
like
like
that
40
hard.
minute driving.
yeah, nearby enough that like this would be the city that people drive into when they need to go beyond Forks, what Fork has to offer. But yeah, she gets surrounded by some guys that are clearly like up to no good, not going to treat her nicely, and
They start like cornering her.
they're cornering her, and out of nowhere in a car, heavily described in the book because Stephanie Meyer is really into cars, so she
Obsessed with
always
them.
like really details the cars everyone is driving.
Okay.
In the movie, Edward shows up in a hatchback car, which I think is a very weird choice. It's not cool at all. He shows up in a car and gets out and kind of scares the shit
he
out
like
of the
growls
guys.
at him. He's like, "Arr."
He's like,
literally growling
and like
and-
glares at
Yeah.
them, and they all are like, "What the fuck?" and like back away. And he's like, "Get in the car," to Bella, and like she's like, "Okay," and like gets in, and he like scares them more by like pretending like he's gonna run them over, and
Yeah.
then drives away. And he's like,
he is like in a fit.
he is in a fit of fury, and Bella's just so like, "Oh my god, Edward, why are you here? What is going on? Thank you, I guess."
And he was like, "You have to convince me not to turn around and kill those men." And she's like, "What?
Oh.
Like, don't do that."
And then he says like, he's like,
That's a lot of burden for a 17-year-old girl.
he says, "You don't know the vile things they were thinking," and she's like, "And you do?"
And you do?
And he's like, "Well, it wasn't hard to guess."
It's like, okay, so you think Bella's stupid?
Do vampires read minds or is this just social cues?
Well, I wouldn't say vampires.
So
read minds.
yes, so
Okay.
Edward ends up
Hint.
Edward and Bella, yeah, they go to a restaurant together and kind of sit down and have a talk. And Edward's like, "I can read minds." And
Okay. All right.
And he's like, "I can read everyone's mind in the room." Best joke from the movie. He's going around the room, being like looking at people and being like,
Yeah.
"Sex, money, sex, cat."
Cat.
That guy gets a full moment where he's like,
Yes.
He like sighs briefly. That's like the best joke actually in the entire movie series.
Yeah, I relate to that guy so much. He's at dinner with a person, not
Yeah.
talking to them, just daydreaming
daydreaming about
cats.
cat.
I know.
And then he also reveals everyone in the room but you, Bella. He
Oh.
cannot read
Cannot
her mind.
Bella's mind.
And he is so torn up about that. Like, or
Yep.
not like torn up, but he's like so
Perplexed.
fascinated by her.
That's why he's asking all those questions.
That's why he was asking so many questions, because he's used to being able to just read what people are thinking in their
Mhm.
mind, and he cannot do that at
Alright.
all to Bella. So that's why he was acting
that's
so over the top, being like, "And you think this because like blah blah blah."
Because he just thinks he's so good at understanding people because he can read everyone's
Yeah,
mind.
I mean, so he wasn't used to it. It had been a long time since he was a human and couldn't read minds. So, we do find out this is just an Edward thing. It's not vampires. Edward just has
Okay.
a special ability.
He's just special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Bella is
Okay.
sure that their family is some other being.
Yeah.
And she has told Edward this at this point. So she's like, can the rest of your family do this? And he's like,
No, it's just
no,
me.
just
No,
me.
it's just me.
Okay.
No, just me. Yeah, so I mean, Edward at that point is kind of like, well, she kind of has. I've played all of my cards, but like he still is just like, Bella, you need to stay away from me.
It's not good for us to be friends.
We can't be friends.
Wait. Is his ability to read minds why he doesn't have a step sibling partner? Because Daddy Vampire probably was like trying to recruit more.
Well,
I don't know.
so-
kind of, and he never like got along with them or
He
something.
actually like I mean, this will come up later, but one of his like quote unquote sisters, Rosalie,
Oh,
like
yeah.
was changed originally with the intention of being like
Yeah.
partners with Edward, but
Yeah.
they just didn't really
They did not
vibe.
connect.
So
Yeah.
that just didn't
Okay.
happen. But it wasn't related to the mind reading. It was sort of just related to Rosalie's personality.
Well, like,
I have a
Edward
feeling
just,
some
like,
of it might be the
doesn't.
mind reading.
Apparently, Edward has never shown romantic interest in anybody.
Yeah.
Like he just just not what he feels.
Well,
he
he's-
just
yeah.
hasn't felt that way about anybody. But yeah, so he's still gaslighting her though, even though like he's just like straight up admitted like he's like, yeah, I can read minds. Anyway, and she's also like in the car, she accidentally touches his hand and he's like ice cold, and she's like, oh, you're so cold.
A new thing to add to
And
my
he like
Google
turns
search.
up the heat in the car. I think it's like, oh.
Yeah.
It's just cold outside. I mean,
And this is one of the interesting differences between the books and the movies. And in the books, this is actually when Bella finds out he's a vampire. But in the
Right.
movie, they delay it to the next day at school
that
to
she
have the very
she
funny
finally
scene.
has her
Yeah.
montage of like she is looking at vampires online, and she gets a little
Yeah.
vampire montage of like vampire media and stuff, and like Google screenshots.
Nosferatu.
The
Yeah.
cold
Yeah,
one.
The
I
cold
think that she
ones.
has a dream where like she's in the movie of Nosferatu.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
she's the victim.
And Edward's
Yeah.
biting her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So then the next day, she like leads Edward out into the forest, and is like,
This is my favorite scene in
no,
the
I mean, it's the
entire
most iconic
series.
scene in the series. So she's like, I know what you are.
I'm gonna
You're
shake
super
my head.
fast
Even if you can't
and
see
super
me,
strong.
I'm shaking my head.
You're ice cold, and like I don't know what the whole script is at this point.
You're fast.
You're super fast. You're
You
strong.
disappear
You're
when
ice cold.
You disappear when the sun comes
you,
out.
You're
Oh,
never
yeah.
seen when the sun is
Yeah.
out, because like they had established
Your
too
eyes
at high
change
school.
color.
Yeah, at high school they would always be gone when it was really sunny out.
They took family
Yeah.
camping.
They took
trips.
family camping
camping
trips,
trips.
was the description. That they were like, oh, Carlisle is just so
Which is
like wants to
pretty
take his kids
which
out.
is believable, right? It's
Yeah, a rich
yeah.
family taking their kids out all
right,
the time and
because
going on
it's
vacation.
sunny, it's
yes.
awesome. Yeah, let's go for camping. F
Yeah.
school, right?
Yeah. Well, so she describes all this, and Edward's like, say it out loud. And she's like, vampire.
He's standing behind her.
Yeah, also,
and
like-
she is looking forward and,
And he's
so away
like
from
leaning
him.
over her.
He's awkwardly leaning, like he's
The
not
scene.
really going anywhere, but he's just like in a leaned
Say it.
position,
Out loud.
standing.
Out
He's
loud.
like, say it
Mm.
out loud.
Ugh.
And he goes through then this whole spiel that he's like, Bella, you should be scared of me because I can kill you. I could kill you right now.
As
It'd
if
be
you
so
could outrun
easy.
me.
Oh, yeah.
As if
I
you
mean,
could run away. And
be
he does
fair.
a bunch of
To be fair.
demonstrations.
As
Yeah.
if you could outrun me, and
Jumps
then
on
he
a
runs
tree,
around really
hangs,
fast.
hangs
As if
up
you
like a
could fight me off.
chimpanzee through a like on a tree
Yeah,
branch.
he gets up
He's
in a
like, "What?"
tree at one point.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, what? Yes, I know.
Up in a tree.
I love
He
that
throws,
scene.
he like pulls a tree out of the ground and throws it, and like he's like,
Yeah.
you should be so scared right now. And she's like, I'm not.
No, I think
not
you're.
gonna-
I think you're
you're not
I think
great.
you're cool. And he's like,
You're not gonna hurt
he's like,
me.
well, I'm not cool, Bella.
Because he's had this whole thing where he's always like, "What if I'm not the good guy, Bella?" And
I'm
she's like,
meant
"I
for
don't
killing."
believe
Yeah,
that
she's
you
like,
could
I think
ever-
you are though.
Yeah.
No basis for
You're a
this.
softie inside. You're not gonna hurt
You've
me.
only been gaslighting me this whole book, but I think
You
you're
did
good.
save me from the car crash. And those
You
guys.
saved her twice. Yeah.
No, she's like, nah, you're into me. You're not gonna hurt me.
Um,
Bite me.
That turns out that's not a good defense.
And- And then like also he's like, you have to see this, and he takes her like farther up the mountain. Like he like pulls her onto his back and like
Yeah.
runs really fast up the mountain.
All right. I mean, fast travel.
They
might as
stop.
well,
It's
right?
like so that they could get to like a patch of sunlight.
Yeah.
And he's like, you have to see what I am in the sun.
Oh,
And then
So he's like, unbuttoning his shirt.
Yeah,
Just,
it's
like, listening.
unbuttoning shirt and just like and slowly moves into the sunlight and
he sparkles.
yes, like
with
Bella-
sound
diamonds.
effects. So it's like twing.
Yeah, yes, like diamonds.
And Bella's like, wow, it's like diamonds. It's
You're beautiful.
And Edward, he's like, beautiful. Bella, it's the skin of a killer.
The killer. But it's shiny. We like shiny.
He just seemed so convinced that showing her that he sparkled was gonna like scare the
change
heck
her
out of her. And I was
mind.
like,
No.
that was the
What
worst
was-
possible strategy
What was
She's
Stephanie
a
Meyer's
lady
reasoning
drawn to a shiny thing.
for the sparkles.
for the sparkling?
She wanted
Why did
to
she
make-
change that part of vampires?
She wanted to make the vampires, I think, really invincible, basically. There's like very little that can actually be done against them.
So
So
they-
sunlight doesn't hurt them. They just have to hide away so
They
that
have
humans
crystalline
don't see.
like skin, like their whole body
Okay.
is like crystalline like, and that's like why they sparkle, and that's why they're like so strong. Like their body is like really, it's
Okay.
hard like
Turns to
marble
rock, basically.
and cold. Yeah, so that's why they
So
also
they
sparkle.
so much that it would be suspicious.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's why
like
they
fairly.
disappear.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
like
It's like a holographic sticker. Kinda.
Yeah,
Like if
yes.
your whole skin was like
Yeah.
that.
That's a good
I mean,
I
analogy.
think
but
it
like,
actually-
you're in
yeah.
the
like I genuinely think it's downplayed in the movie how much they
Yeah,
actually
I
are
think
supposed to
so.
sparkle.
In the
Okay.
books, it's really.
I think it's supposed to be like a diamond, like
breathtaking and,
fascinated.
Like, it's fascinating.
Like,
Like,
yeah.
shine bright like a diamond. That's
Yeah, that song was about Edward
Okay.
Cullen.
Yeah.
because there was a trend in makeup where highlighters were like holographic and iridescent
Yeah,
and very
like it just
sparkly.
looks
So,
like they're
Could
sparkly
have just been that.
in the movie, but I think the way it's set up in the book is that they look like faceted, which
Yeah.
would be really
Okay.
weird to see.
Mhm.
That would be alarming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also I think this is a good point to say that Stephanie Meyer admitted she did not look up any vampire lore whatsoever,
Wow.
which is why the
Unbelievable.
vampires in these movies can go into any place without
Mhm.
being invited. They are not affected by garlic.
Mhm.
They're not killed by sunlight. They just have like a reaction to sunlight. They
They have reflections.
have reflections. They have
Yes,
shadows. They do
yes.
not turn into bats.
They
Yeah.
don't
cannot.
live in coffins.
They're not affected by holy imagery or anything.
They can go into
They
water.
don't sleep.
They're not affected by stakes.
Yeah.
And yeah.
They don't sleep. Also,
And religion has no effect on them.
yeah. So like, there's none of the traditional vampire lore because Stephanie Meyer admitted
What are
she
you
did
supposed to
not
do
look
with
up
them?
anything about vampires.
Okay.
Because I think this whole book was inspired by a dream she had.
Yeah.
Mm.
Also a fact I didn't
So,
know.
I mean, so that's just to be pointed out that's why the vampires in these movies are like so separate from general vampire
Any
lore.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Bella is so like okay with all of this. She's like, yeah, I'm into you.
At one point,
She's
Edward is like,
really
"Don't you
into
want to
him.
know what I eat?" And Bella's like, "I don't care."
I don't care.
Oh
But
my
he does
God.
admit that they only drink the blood of animals.
Yeah, so we find out the Cullens,
They're
they
vegetarian.
are
They're
vegetarian, as in they only eat animal blood, and that's why
Okay.
also why they'll be gone sometimes is they are off hunting.
And Bella correctly predicts that the eye color is matched up with their
Yes.
hunger level, which I think is a wild
Wild
thing
thing
for
to
Bella
guess.
to get.
Yeah.
She was like, "I can tell when your eyes are darker, you're a little bit crankier, so I figured you're hungry."
Yeah.
And he was like,
Yep.
"Yeah."
He's a little angry.
Yeah, so a vampire that has bright red eyes is either extremely hungry or like a newborn vampire or like they just constantly eat blood.
Like human blood.
Like human blood. And
Okay.
then a vampire who has bright gold eyes has fed but not on human blood.
On animal blood. And then really dark eyes
Interesting.
just means hunger.
They're vegetarians. They have golden eyes.
Their eyes turn like black when they're like feeding frenzy hungry.
Mm.
Like the cats.
Like cats.
When they have their zoomies.
Yeah, basically.
They're pretty much the same.
Basically.
Yes.
Well, so all of this is going along, and Bella's just so like okay with it. I love this very like. I feel like reading it in the book, it didn't seem cringy, but when it was said out loud in the movie, it's so cringy that
So cringy.
that Edward's like, and so the lion fell in love with the lamb.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And Bella's like, what a stupid lamb. And Edward's like, what a sick masochistic lion.
Oh God.
Because
Okay.
in the books, they're like always joking
No.
around with each other,
Yeah.
and so then that sort of plays off as a joke in the book. But in the movie, it's
Okay.
so soap opera that it's like,
yeah.
what a stupid lamb.
Stupid lamb.
It sounds cheesy.
I mean, he's like pinning her against the
extremely
wall.
inappropriate.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
And that scene is played a bit awkward.
I really
well,
also like that.
everything is a bit awkward.
Everything about that scene is very awkward. Also because like Edward is really like posturing himself to be like dangerous and like
the killer,
a killer, and like Bella shouldn't be near him or be associated with him, but like still interacting with her, and so he's being
in
so,
ways that
like,
she
threatening.
can't like go away from too.
Yeah,
like
he's
he'll
being
walk to
so
school and
threatening
walk
toward
to her
her.
to her classes and things.
So, to be fair, as a former 14-year-old girl who grew up in this time, this is very on point, on brand.
Yes, this is
will
why
make
this was.
Oh yeah, we ate this shit up.
Teenage girls' hearts
Yeah.
flutter.
Yeah.
We ate this shit up. Yeah,
Yeah.
Very
100%.
blushy.
Middle school Sammy could not get enough of this.
I'm sure. Yeah, no, I totally get. Like, I understand at a meta level why this was successful because it was 2000, like
Yes.
6 or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all this is happening, and there's like further things happening in the background with like the people are getting killed, and eventually like the Cullens are alerted to it because Carlisle is like doing the autopsies on these people that are killed, including like a friend of Charlie's. So that's when it gets like really serious. A friend of Charlie's was killed, and Carlisle like in that scene like just looks at Edward, and Edward's like gets very upset because Carlisle knows that Edward can read his mind, so he's just telling him like, yeah, there's vampires killing all these people, and they're like, oh shit, this isn't good, because like any other vampires that come into their town are gonna threaten the Cullens' existence, because they're so undercover.
Territory issues.
Also, they are all like morally opposed to.
Yeah, they're morally opposed to hurting humans, basically too.
Especially Carlisle.
So they're the nice vampires.
Yeah.
Got
Yes.
it.
They're all driven by Carlisle. Started the whole thing that he, was recruiting all of them one by one, and was like, we don't harm humans. Like we have this like curse, affliction, or gift, whatever. But we're gonna deal with it in the least violent way.
And Carlisle's the only one of them who actually has never hurt a human. He's never eaten anybody.
No,
Everybody else-
Rosalie hasn't either. Rosalie has never. I just read this. That's why I know this. I would ever remember that.
But she kills all the
She killed
guys.
them. She did not drink their blood.
Well,
Yeah, we'll get to
Carlisle
there.
hasn't killed
Okay.
people, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Harm is used loosely.
Edward has killed people.
Yes.
Edward has. That's fine. We'll talk about it in book 2. Yeah. Well, so, Bella does get introduced to the Cullens. Like, she goes to their house. I think it is so funny that they're like so secretive, and then they have a house in the woods that is all windows.
Entirely.
Yes.
It's like entirely made out of windows.
No blinds.
And no
Do they
blinds.
have like film on it at least to like block it from
No,
the
no.
outside?
They just have like a very big
Yeah.
window
Yeah.
house. I think that is
Okay.
so
It's like
funny.
a tree house more so.
Um,
but-
it's beautiful.
Giant.
It is cool. I would love
She
to
walks
live in
up
their
the
house.
stairs, and they have like a joke artwork in their family that's all of their graduation
Yeah.
caps over the years.
There's like 100 of them.
There's like there's so much more than I
There
thought there
should
would
be,
be.
right?
That there should be.
Because
I
they've all
think.
been around. I mean, Edward has been a vampire for like 100 years.
Yeah.
It's like, how many times has he actually done high school? Because he's done college too. He's talked about that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm also like, why do you guys
Yeah.
go to high school?
Yeah.
Why?
At
Why
what
wouldn't you go
point
to
does
college?
someone
In
go like,
shorts?
wait a second,
No, there
weren't
isn't.
you in high
Okay.
school already? Do they not have like yearbooks? Like what?
Yeah, I know. You'd think that they would. Maybe they'd never get their pictures taken.
But like the turnover in that school can't be that high.
Well, they move
That
from
no one
place to
remembers
place,
them.
so they'll leave Forks for a while and then come back to
so
Forks.
yes, they like just
Okay.
keep coming
But
back
still.
to Forks.
Yeah.
but still,
still.
Yeah,
Once again,
they've
turnover
somehow-
isn't that high in that small
they have
town.
somehow flown under the radar, despite also being like talk of the town because of how weird they are, and the Native Americans being like those guys.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't let them on our land.
Yeah.
These logistics seem questionable, but I'll suspend disbelief.
Yeah, well, so Bella meets everybody. She gets like a formal introduction. Esme is Carlisle's wife. She's really sweet. She doesn't have a lot of
Oh my
personality.
God.
She's
besides
very motherly.
Beast
Okay,
mom.
now I know why the baby's name's the baby's name.
Yeah, we'll get there, Fran.
Ugh.
There's Alice,
Okay.
who is generally. I feel like a lot of people say Alice is their favorite character. She's really bubbly and cute and is like
Nice.
super nice and
Yeah.
welcoming.
She loves Bella.
She loves Bella. Jasper is her partner, and he's like the opposite. He's like quiet,
He's always in pain.
always in pain. He looks like he's in
Pain, yeah.
pain because he has. He's like the newest vegetarian. He's not the newest vampire, but he's the newest vegetarian,
in
and so he has like
transitioning.
the most difficulty, like resisting
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's Emmett, who's like a bro.
He's a big himbo.
He's a big himbo bro. I love him.
I love him.
Also,
He's
like-
my favorite character.
Yes.
Cool.
He has like such a like 1 point personality, but I really like it. And then Rosalie, who's total bitch.
Yeah.
She
She does
hate-
not
she
like
is
Bella.
so mean. She is so mean to Bella. She's very rude and like off-putting and like yeah, just total bitch. We do not find out why until way later, so
Yeah.
we'll get there later. Yeah, and those are the Cullens. And then so we should establish a couple things I think right now about the Cullens besides that they only eat animal blood. And Edward is not the only one with a ability.
Mm-hmm.
Alice also has the ability to receive premonitions of the future.
Okay.
There are some like rules about it. So she can have visions of both regular humans and vampires, but she cannot have visions of what she describes as half-breeds. So like basically other supernatural creatures cannot appear in her visions for some reason. And she only has visions of things like after a decision has been made. However, visions don't always come true also. Like
Because if you make a new
they-
decision.
because if you make a new decision, it
Yeah.
could change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
She also can
Fair.
see the future better for people she is closer
Yes.
with than.
Yeah.
So she can't like see a random person's
Yeah.
future until she kind of gets to know them a little
She's
bit.
a great fanfic character. is
Yes,
what
I
I'll
think it's
say.
just
They
basically
can do a
people
lot
that
with
revolve around her
Yeah.
are really the only people that she'll have visions for, more or less.
Yeah.
And then this is I totally forgot, but the movies do not like they cut this out, but Jasper has a
Dope
power. And it is not addressed in the movie whatsoever. But Jasper has the ability to like calm emotions.
He can just control
He
emotions.
can like
Yes.
kind of control
Control
emotions.
them.
He can
And
like
read them.
sense other people's emotions and like yeah, control them to a degree.
There's like one reference to it in New Moon, I think, in the movies.
Yes.
It's
Oh, yeah.
wild.
And that's it. It's like totally brushed under the rug in the movies. It's not
But
like
it's
a
actually-
huge thing, but it
if-
comes up more.
In
the book.
Midnight Sun, it's a pretty the Edward perspective of Twilight. It's pretty important. Like Jasper's
Oh.
always doing stuff to protect the Cullens by manipulating
Oh.
emotions. Like we'll get
Yes.
to a scene later, but there's a scene where he like
Hmm.
makes Bella and Edward seem really boring and unimportant so that people don't even like pay attention
Yeah.
to that. Like he does a lot of
So
stuff.
yeah, it's
that
a lot
is
of
just,
like under the
never-
radar.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
he's an empath that has like very advanced version of calm
Yeah.
animal.
Yeah. And this is a good point that they kind of talk about the theory of these powers in vampires is that it takes something that you were good at as a human and just makes it more extreme.
Amplifies
So
it.
like Jasper
Yeah.
maybe was
Okay.
an empath type person and now he can control.
Alice is revealed to that she was in an asylum for having actual premonitions when she was a human.
Oh,
Yeah.
And so then Edward
Well-
probably could like read people well and so now
Yeah.
he can read their
Yeah.
minds. And then there's like arguably all of the vampires have powers like Rosalie's is just being really beautiful.
I was gonna say, but like they don't like yeah.
It's
They,
like, Emmett is strong.
they all
Carlisle
have.
has
It's more
restraint.
that yeah. It's more that they all have like a ability that ranges from like really
Actually cool.
basic to actually wild.
Yeah.
When we meet more vampires, we'll
It
learn
gets
that
wild.
there
Yeah.
are some wild powers.
Yes.
okay.
But yeah, so everybody kind of gets an ability of some kind. But yeah, Emmett's is also just that he's a little more strong than the other ones. That's like literally
That's
it.
it. Carlisle has a lot of restraint.
Carlisle has
He can be a
crazy
doctor.
restraint. I mean, he's a doctor, and he doesn't get like any bloodlust whatsoever.
And
as
I think
a doctor.
Esme's is just being motherly.
Yeah, I don't.
I feel
don't
so bad for
remember if
Esme.
ever actually like they established that
It's
she
just like
had
she
one.
just loves
Has
babies.
this been like, oh, before we became a vampire, this is the only thing I knew, so it gets amplified when they become a vampire or something?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
the vampires don't really remember their human life very well, so
Yeah,
most
I
of
mean,
them
it's so
don't
long
really
ago.
know. It like fades out.
Yeah.
So I don't think
Yeah.
they're just like guessing. I think at that point.
And so Carlisle is the patriarch and turned literally everyone.
Except for oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, everybody.
Oh, except for
no,
Jasper,
except for Jasper.
and
Not
Alice.
Jasper.
Yeah, Jasper, yeah, except for Jasper and Alice, but he turned everyone else. Um,
Yep.
And kind of, so he's the head of the coven.
But he only turns people who are dying and have no other
He
choice.
turns people who don't have it. Well, like I was like, well, they kind of have a choice. They
Which
could be
is
like,
to
I
die.
don't want to.
Yeah.
But so he turned Edward when he was treating Edward in a hospital in 1918. Edward was dying of the Spanish flu, and he turned Edward. He
'Cause
turned.
he was lonely and he wanted a friend.
Yeah, he turned Esme because she also she
She jumped off a cliff.
yeah, she was trying to commit suicide, but she failed, and he turned
'Cause
her.
I think she had an abusive husband
Yeah,
and just
no,
had a
she-
miscarriage.
She was
Oh,
like
wow.
20, and she had an abusive husband and had a miscarriage, and she tried to kill herself. He had
Does
like
that-
met her before. 'Cause
yeah,
was
he had
living in the
known her
town.
since she was a child, which makes it way creepier now that
Yes.
they are married.
I just
and-
I just reread that on the wiki. He met her when she was
forgot about
16,
that one.
Yeah.
and because she had like broken her leg, and he
Yeah.
was the town
Ugh.
doctor.
And she had been in love with him that whole time.
Yeah, so that's a little weird.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I think
this.
did he find Rosalie?
Yeah, Rosalie had been just abused by her
Rosalie
fiance,
had-
like
yeah.
raped and killed, left for
Rosalie
dead.
had been gang R word, and left for dead by a fiance and his friends, and he found her-
Terrible.
Yeah, really
It's like
awful.
the worst
Yeah.
part of these whole book series. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Ugh.
you did
Um,
not need to do that stuff anymore.
Rosalie killed all those guys, but it's revealed later she didn't drink their blood, and she was really proud of that. Like she just
killed
them.
while wearing her wedding dress,
Yeah,
which
which
I
is
think
pretty
is
great.
very
Oh,
dramatic.
that's pretty good
Yeah.
badassery right there.
And then she found Emmett in the woods, half dead because he'd been attacked by a bear, and she was like smitten with him, and she brought him to Carlisle, and he turned him.
She was smitten with him because she said he reminded her of one of her friends while she was a human's baby. She was like, he looks just like this baby. I love him.
This
Oh, God.
strapping young man reminds me of a baby. I'd like to marry him forever.
to keep him.
Oh goodness.
Um,
So is this where, I don't know if this is a real quote or not, where she asks Edward, like, how old are you? And he's like, 17.
that was back when they're in
And
the
she
woods.
then goes with, how long have you been 17?
17?
A while.
For a
I think
while.
that was like
Wow.
right before the say it out loud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the Cullens. I think it's good to have that set up going into the rest of it here, but the Cullens are like Bella and Edward kind of officially are like, we are dating. We're dating.
Mhm.
Oh,
They kiss.
We've made it official.
They kind of kiss.
She met the parents.
It's very hard for Edward to kiss Bella because he so wants to kill her so badly.
Yeah, because I guess we haven't mentioned Bella's blood is like especially enticing to Edward specifically. Like everyone's blood is
why I
enticing, but
freaked
people
out.
have different levels, and Bella's is like
Her
I think they
pheromones
call
are
them,
like,
singers
let's-
or something in the book, where it's
Sure.
like this person's a singer for me, so I'm like really want to eat
Just,
their blood.
yeah, like he is just crazy over the top. Like she smells so good. He says, "You're like my own personal brand of heroin."
Yes, he says that.
Oh my.
But
It's
like
so
the other,
good. That's what he says when he's up in the tree. Your scent is like a drug to me. My own personal brand of heroin. He's just like,
In an awkward
It's so
position.
good.
hanging off of a tree,
but
yes.
like the other vampires agree that she smells really good,
Yeah.
like better than most people. But it's just Edward in particular that it's like basically overwhelming. Yeah.
Mm.
so they can't be very physical.
They can't be very physical, which like Bella really wants. Really
Yes.
wants. She's so She's so horny for him.
She's so
Oh my god,
It's so
teenage
funny.
hormones, man.
Honestly, it's
Fuck.
so funny just because Edward's so like, no.
He's like so traditional. He's like, no, I can't.
Well, also, yeah, he's also very like old school, like traditional. I think like it's explained that it's just like he's kind of kept morals of the time he grew up.
Yeah.
And so he's very much like, we must only court and we can only look at each other and
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But also, it's very hard for me to touch you.
But then, I mean, they also do other stuff where, like, he watches her sleep every night. And then starts,
no.
yeah, not with her consent at
Yes.
first. He just shows up and is
This is
watching
before
her.
she knows he's a vampire.
Yeah.
She like is like, I keep having dreams about you. Like I wake up briefly and see you, and then you're not there anymore. And then at one point he's like, oh yeah, I was there. I was in your room watching you sleep.
No,
Because vampires
no.
don't sleep, so you just get
Yeah,
bored.
so he
Yeah,
has been
that
like,
doesn't mean stare at her.
yeah, he's been breaking into her room at night and staring at her while she sleeps.
and
then
she
Edward-
loves it. She's
she
like,
loves it.
please,
Oh my God.
please come to my room every night.
yeah, so then
No.
like they're hanging out in her room, and like she falls asleep on his like rock hard cold
so
ice cold body. She's like, I love it so much. It's so comfy. And he's like, it shouldn't be. And she's like, nah. It's fine.
So they're
that's
like
what
dating.
They try to kiss, and he
14-year-old
literally
Fran would
like
not
leaps
have
off of her.
appreciated
Shake my
someone
head
just
this
watching
entire
over her
time,
while she's
yes.
sleeping.
Mm-mm.
Oh goodness.
So yeah, everything about it's so bad.
Yikes.
But yeah, she's like, I like that you're watching me when I sleep now.
It's
I thought
so
it was
creepy.
scary at first, but now it's fine.
Now
No,
that I know
Now that I
you.
know you.
no.
All right. Well, so we have to get to the best scene
The
in
best
the movie.
scene. This is my favorite scene.
The Twilight movies have such good soundtracks, like actually, and that's like my one defense of them. The Cullens are trying to be really welcoming to Bella, despite that this is like difficult that she's a human. But they're like, you know what? Edward's never showed like any interest in anyone, so like maybe we should,
Yeah.
support this.
Carlisle and Esme especially, they're like, finally.
Yes, they're like,
Yeah.
finally. So they take her to do what they love to do, which is they love to play baseball. Because they're old American people. Except Carlisle, who is from England
Yeah,
originally.
he's like 1600 or something.
Yeah,
He's like-
1600s England is Carlisle, where he's from. But anyway, they love to play baseball together, but they can only do it when it's thunderstorming. Because the power with which they hit the baseballs and catch them and such makes really loud
That
sounds.
doesn't break with how the force they.
I know.
really
I don't
hit
know
the
what the
ball.
bats are made out of or
Yeah.
the ball. Like, it seems like it would explode.
They also like in the movie, like Edward and Emmett like collide in air, and that also makes like a
Yeah.
thunderous sound
Yeah.
It's so good.
Why? Oh no.
because they're rock
Okay.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay.
I love they make
We'll go with that.
they make Bella the umpire in this game, which is so
So
funny because
funny.
they're way too fast
so
for her.
fast.
So first time I saw this movie, I was like, "Are you sure you're not gonna hit her face with that ball?"
Yeah.
So close to her.
And she'd be okay if she got hit by it, even accidentally. Like it would just go past her entire
It would,
head.
yeah, take her brain out.
Yes.
I like they're all dressed up in like baseball outfits
Yes,
in the
it's
movie,
very cute.
and they make Ella
Yeah.
her Bella
Gracious.
dress up too.
Yes.
So they're having fun. They're all like, I love. Emmett like climbs up a tree to grab a baseball, and Rosalie says to Bella, "My monkey man."
Which is in
Oh,
fact
boy.
the second monkey reference for like
Well,
romantic
Edward-
partners in this
Edward?
movie.
Oh,
You better
That's
hold
his
on
little
tight,
tight
Spider
spider
Monkey.
spider monkey. Yeah.
He takes Bella for like a run in the wilderness and climbing up trees, and like he pulls her onto his back. He says,
Yeah.
"You better hang on tight, Spider Monkey." That's not in the books.
It should be though.
It
It's
should be,
perfect.
though.
It's
Shouldn't be,
perfect
yeah, it shouldn't be in the
literature
books.
right there.
Anyway, back to baseball. They're having a blast, having fun. Rosalie's being a bitch. Like
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 always.
Bella calls her out.
Bella keeps calling things against Rosalie.
Yeah.
Which, if I was in Bella's position, I would be like, I can't see what's happening anyway. Everything's in Rosalie's favor in the
Yeah.
hopes that she stops hating me.
Yeah.
But then someone far in the distance catches one of their baseballs, and from the woods appear 3 different vampires.
Yes.
James, Laurent, and Victoria, who
That's
are
a
their
good
own little
soundtrack.
coven.
With their own good soundtrack.
Yes.
And they're gliding.
Yes, in slow-mo.
In slow-mo.
yes.
They're not really
Well,
walking.
they're walking really
they
fast.
yeah.
But they put it in slow-mo. It's
Yeah.
actually a really cool effect. In the behind the scenes, they have them like on like a tarp that is moving, like kind of like an escalator.
Yeah.
And then so that's how they got the effect of it. Looks like they're walking really,
Really
fast, but they've
fast,
slowed
but
it down.
yeah.
It's cool.
It's cool.
That's a good scene.
But anyway, they appear and everybody's instantly like, uh-oh. And like try to act normal that we don't have a human with us.
This is where Jasper's power comes in Midnight Sun.
Yes.
As he's trying to make Bella and Edward and himself, because he is covered in battle scars.
Right, that's I forgot to mention that detail about Jasper. This is not in the movie really. Like, you don't
Yeah.
really see it, but Jasper
No.
is also covered in scars, which we will find out
Oh.
why later. He's covered in
Okay.
crescent moon scars, which is notably bite marks. But yeah, we'll cover that later because that's related to his backstory.
Okay.
But yeah, so James, Laurent, and Victoria are their own little like mini coven. We do find out later that the Cullens are an especially large coven. Covens are usually only like 3 or 4.
Oh.
So they're pretty big. But so they appear and they're like, let's play. Can we play with you guys? Like at first they established they're like, yeah, we have been hunting around here, and the Cullens are like, well, we live here, so like you can't do that. And they're like, oh, we didn't know that.
They're like, okay, yeah, we
Yeah,
won't do it
sorry.
anymore.
Yeah, like they're pretty.
We'll
being
stop
pretty
doing
polite.
whatever. Yeah.
I mean, Laurent is heading up because he's the most personable, and Laurent is like actually kind of a good guy. He
Sort
comes
of.
up later. Yeah, I mean, like
sort of.
sort of.
He's trying. He has an
He's trying.
internal
He's trying.
struggle.
But like so they're being really polite with each other, and they're like,
Okay.
"Can we play with you?" And Carlisle's like, "Yeah, sure. Two of us were just leaving, so actually perfect." And as Edward and Bella turn to leave, wind blows.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And James catches whiff of Bella's delicious scent.
That's what he does.
Yeah. He's like,
A really loud sniff. That's what he does.
he says, "You brought a snack."
Nope. Nope.
And he, kind of immediately postures like he's gonna go pounce, and all of the Cullens immediately surround Bella to
Bella,
defend.
yeah.
So now there's a
And
bunch of vampires like
Pose like,
and they're like
they
they're
hiss.
hissing
Yeah.
and growling and
they hiss. And at least so Laurent again being like the most personable one of their coven.
most rational.
Yeah, the most rational. He's kind of like, wait a minute, well, no. I don't know what's happening, but we don't want to fight. And he's like, I see that, we are not welcome anymore. James and Victoria, let's leave. I don't care why they have a human, but let's leave.
Skid out.
We don't want to fight.
Get out.
And he really has to convince James because James is looking like, he's going to kill Bella at any instant. But they do leave, and Bella and Edward get in the car. I love that Edward tries to buckle Bella.
She's like, I can do it.
I got it.
Tensions are high.
And they start driving away, and she's like, they're leaving. Like, what's wrong? And Edward's like, well, I read James' mind, and James, like, his whole thing / kind of his special ability is that he loves to like track and hunt and kill. That's his thing, and he's really good at it, and that's what he loves to do, and he's super like into like the game of it.
Yeah.
And me reacting to defend you has made this a really fun game for him
Yeah.
to go after you.
Yeah.
So he is now going to 100% just be hunting Bella because it's going to be super fun.
For as long as he
as he can.
until he gets her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so
He's never gonna make it to prom at this rate.
I know.
Well,
So-
good thing she wasn't planning on going.
Yeah, right. She
anyway.
was like, yeah, that's fine. Well, so I hate this part, but like they're like, you have to tell Charlie that you have to go away.
I think that's Bella's idea because they're just like, we're leaving, and she's like, no, I have to
have
tell
to say something to
Charlie so that
Charlie,
he
yes.
knows that I'm like okay or whatever, and he doesn't come looking for me.
Yeah.
Because if he comes looking for me, maybe the tracker will get him. So
Yeah.
she's like, I will tell Charlie I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so she, in order to like be able to leave, well, so she comes in and she's like, Edward and I broke up. I'm really upset. And Charlie's like trying to help. He's like kind of all. He's like got the awkwardness
He's
like Bella clearly
trying.
got from him, but but it's so much more endearing. But he's like trying to help, and she's like, well, I broke up. I had to leave. I had to get out of here. And he's like, no. And he's like, no. Well, let's talk about it, and like, we'll do something about it in the
He's
morning.
trying to be a good dad.
Yeah, and he's like, I
Yeah.
can get you tickets tomorrow. Let's just sleep on it. You're
And
like,
she's like, no, I have to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drive. I have to
Like,
get out of
right
here.
now.
I want to go be with
No, yeah.
mom. And then like, she's like, I had to say something to him that's gonna make him not come with me and
Yeah.
make him leave. And so she says like, I can't remember. I said it's like so sad because I love
it's like, I
Charlie.
She
don't
said,
want to
"This
be
is-
like trapped
I don't
want to
get
like
stuck
Mom.
here like
Yeah.
mom, or something like that. Wait, I mean, like
Oh.
so mean.
And it was
So
apparently
mean.
the
so
last
mean.
thing
Poor
that
Charlie. I
Renee,
feel
her
so bad
mom,
for him.
said to Charlie when she left. So
Yeah.
she said the
Oh, that's
exact same
Exact
thing.
same
Brutal.
thing. That, yeah.
Brutal.
So she
Yeah,
leaves, and
she's
Charlie
really
does not
brutal.
come
teenage
after her.
girl train of thought.
Yeah,
Oh, poor Charlie.
I know. So I genuinely feel so bad because Charlie's such a good guy.
I know. He forgives so much.
forgives so much.
Yes.
So
Again, sweetest guy ever.
so they like leave. They go. I can't remember. They drive immediately like somewhere far away to another state.
They drive to Phoenix.
They drive to Phoenix, right, where she's originally from.
And that is again
Yeah.
Bella's idea. This doesn't come up in the movie. I think it only comes up in the book where they're like, we
That
can't
is
go
a
to
long
Phoenix.
trip.
That's the first place that that James will look. And Bella's like, no, he thinks it's too obvious that we would never go there, which is exactly why we need to go there. He'll never see it coming. It's too obvious. And they're all like, wow, that's a great idea,
Great idea,
Bella. Which
Bella.
happens a lot in the books and movie series where all the Cullens are like, there's no way to solve this problem. And then Bella's like, but what about this really obvious thing? And they're like, I cannot
Whoa.
believe you ever
Brilliant.
thought of that. It's
Brilliant.
just,
Brilliant.
you want to go to your house in Arizona? Wow. I can't even imagine.
Well, so the Cullens are all kind of split up doing different things to protect Bella. Like they're leading James off like her scent trail. They're like driving her. She's with Alice and Jasper in Phoenix when they arrive. And Alice has this vision of a ballet studio.
A room full of
So
mirrors
A
is
room
what she
full of
describes. And then
mirrors.
Bella's like, oh, you mean a ballet studio?
Yeah.
Another time where I'm
Okay.
like, have Alice and Jasper never seen a ballet studio? And they're like hundreds of years of living.
So, Bella's like, well, so also Alice is like, will draw her premonitions sometimes. And the one she draws, Bella's like, I think that's like my old ballet studio.
Okay.
And so they're like, okay, well, so they have a sense of like, well, something could happen here. And Bella then receives a phone call from her mom, and her mom is very distraught. And then James gets on as well and is like, I have your mother. Let's just meet up and get this over with. Leave those two, and nothing will happen to your mom if you show up alone.
She's like,
Good
you got to
gracious.
get rid of your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so somehow Bella does sneak away from
Yeah.
the vampires, which is
in
crazy.
the books, it's a lot more interesting because she does it in the Phoenix airport where she's like, I went to this one bathroom that I know has an exit on the other side of the
Oh,
building.
I don't remember that.
And so then she's like convinces Alice not to follow her into the bathroom because she's like, I just want to have like a human moment.
A human
And then
cry.
she runs out the other side and they don't know that there's another entrance to the bathroom. In the movies, she just like
she just kind of
kinda
walks, away,
Yeah.
which is
That's
wild.
impressive, though. I don't remember that part in the
Yeah, I
book.
don't
I
remember that
only
either.
remember because I was like, I've been to the Phoenix airport. I know what she's talking about because I grew up in the Phoenix area.
Right, you have a special connection here.
I was always like, I'm so much
I'm
like
so
Bella.
much
I'm
like
from
Bella.
Arizona. I know all about the bathrooms in the Phoenix airport.
Well, so she does go meet up with James wildly. She's like, let's go to my old ballet studio. Because Alice is just talking about it. So she meets up there. Big surprise. James does not have her mom at all. He had he had gone to her family home.
So he did go exactly
He
to where
did,
Bella
yeah,
thought
he went to her
would go.
family home and found like an old videotape of like her and her mom and like was using the recording voice to pretend that her mom was with him. And so obviously sucks. She fell right into his trap pretty easily.
Though she's kind of relieved. She's like, oh, my mom's not in danger.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. This is a good turn of events.
Again, Bella
Right.
does not think highly of herself. So she's so just like, anytime she's like about to die, she's like, well,
I guess this
here
is
we
it.
are.
Yeah.
all right. And so, yeah, so she's very much
Gracious.
like, great. Well, this is it for me. And James is also being an asshole and kind of like throwing her around. So she's getting very hurt.
And he's recording
He's also
because he's trying to
videotaping
taunt
it.
Yeah.
Edward.
Yeah, because he wants to show Edward.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's like just a
Gross.
total asshole.
He breaks
Yeah.
her leg.
He
Gross.
breaks her
Breaks
leg,
her leg. Yep.
filming
Ah.
it. And he like
Ugh.
throws her into the mirrors.
Ugh.
But then, thankfully, Edward and some of the other Cullens show up, and they start fighting James, and they rip him apart because the only way to kill the Twilight vampires is to literally dismember them,
Yeah.
take off their heads, and then light everything on fire.
fire.
So there's only ashes.
Oh.
It's the only way to kill them because their body
boy.
parts will move on their own if you
Yeah,
just
they
tear
would
them
like
off.
come back
Yeah.
together.
That's grotesque.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yes.
cool.
It's pretty graphic, the rest of the films. It's pretty graphic.
At one point, they started making the vampires like crack instead of look more human because they
Yes.
had to show so many.
Yeah, well, also
cracking,
like I think
yeah,
it makes more
body
sense because
parts.
they're like
But they're
crystalline.
crystalline.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
It's
they-
pretty cool.
That makes
yeah,
sense.
when they shatter, they like put like shattering sound
Yeah.
effects.
Okay.
Like glass and stuff, which I think it
is
makes
cool.
sense.
Yeah.
They
That
didn't
makes
do it
sense.
as much in the first one, but in the later
There's a
movies.
lot
The
more
later
people
ones,
dying
yes.
later.
Yeah.
They realize, ah, shit.
That's true.
Um,
A lot
It's
more
gonna
people
turn
die
rated R
after.
real
But
fast.
so they do start they kill James, and Bella
In
is
the
like
dance
bleeding
studio.
out on the floor though because she like rolled into like the glass shards and everything. And Carlisle is like, she is going to die.
And she
No,
had been
James-
bitten.
Yeah.
too.
James,
all right,
James had bitten her
James
before they
bit
got,
her.
Yeah.
which means she's going to turn
She's
into a
gonna turn.
vampire.
And so apparently, just like snake venom, because the vampires also in Twilight have venom, and that's what like
Their
kills.
whole body is made of venom.
Okay.
Basically.
Yeah, their whole body is
They
what
don't have blood, they
makes
have
them the
venom.
crystalline. They don't have blood in them. They just have venom, and that's like what makes them crystal and like rock hard. And
Yeah.
that also is what can transform other people.
Mhm.
Okay.
But so apparently, like snake venom, you can suck the venom out of a bite.
Okay.
Um,
That's convenient.
that never comes up again. I'm pretty
No, it
sure.
doesn't.
So
Yeah.
That's fine.
It was very convenient for this one
yeah.
scene.
So they're
Yeah,
like,
that's great.
for some reason, Carlisle is like, Edward, you have to do it.
I have never.
Why does he say that?
Carlisle's right there, like putting pressure on her leg. And I think the closest reason it could be is like, oh, Carlisle's trying to keep her from dying in other ways. That's why he can't do it. But he's like right there.
He's also like Edward. He's like
Yeah,
Edward, you have to
Edward,
do
you
it.
have to do this. Yes.
So Edward is like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to like resist drinking her blood once I am literally drinking her blood to suck the venom out. And he's like, well, you're gonna have to do it. Carlisle's so
Okay.
just like, just do it. So Edward does bite. It's like on her like wrist. So he does bite her wrist and starts sucking the venom out, and it starts like going into like a weird like montage in the movie kind of, but like he's like, Edward, stop, you're gonna kill her.
and Bella's like losing consciousness. So
Yeah.
us as the
And Edward's
viewer is
like-
it's like fuzzy.
Yeah.
But then we wake up. Bella wakes up in the hospital, and she's with her mom, who's fine, and Edward's in the room pretending to be asleep, and it's all been fine. The Cullens told her family members that she was so upset. She went to Phoenix, and then she was like running down a flight of stairs and
In a
fell
hotel.
in her hotel
Yeah.
and fell
And
down
fell
like
through a
several
window?
flights of stairs
And
and through
through
a
a
window. And
Oh
that's why she broke her leg, and she got like all the broken glass and like lost a bunch
Oh,
of
God,
blood.
that's
And
gracious.
everyone's like, Bella's so clumsy
Yeah,
that
everyone's-
this makes sense.
Everyone's like,
to
Bella's
me.
such
She's
a
just so
clumsy
clumsy.
girl.
They
She-
didn't
of course
question
that
it at all.
happened.
Yeah. It's like,
One of many
obviously.
times where I'm like, Charlie, Renee, you're not going to have any follow-up questions
Yeah.
to this?
They're just like, yeah, that makes sense.
No, our daughter is just that clumsy.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
That is a
Um,
cool part of Midnight Sun where you see Alice setting this all up, and she goes through this where she like makes a decision, sees how it plays out. If she doesn't like it, she makes a new decision, and she keeps doing that until she gets the exact outcome she wants of this like
That's pretty
fake
cool.
thing.
She's
Yeah,
a Dr.
Midnight Sun is worth
Strange.
reading, I
Sure.
would say.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, well, so it's all fine and dandy, basically. Like, it was really just James. James was after them, and like Laurent and Victoria like fucked off.
Victoria runs away.
Yeah, I mean they both did.
And yeah,
Laurent
is like,
did
I don't
come
have
back
anything-
at the very end, before like they went off to take Bella to like Phoenix and stuff. He came back to the Cullens and was like, "Hey, I just want you guys to know James is fucked up."
He's like warning
Yeah.
them.
He's
Yeah.
warning that. So like
I'm
he's
so
trying.
sorry for my
Laurent
friend.
is like trying to be an okay guy. He's nice
he
enough.
goes and becomes friends with the other vegetarian
Yeah, he's like
vampires.
later we find out after this he's inspired to try and be a vegetarian vampire.
Aw.
Yeah, so he's trying. But yeah,
Laurent's a
he
bro.
was nice enough to
Got
also
it.
be like, "Hey guys, James was like about chasing people, and so
Yeah.
do something."
I'm so sorry for my
Yeah.
friend.
yeah.
I tried.
So everything is okay. Bella ends
Sure.
up going to prom with Edward.
Uh-huh.
Charlie is very obviously very much like
Okay.
He does not like Edward.
another favorite. Well, yeah, especially after
all
that.
of this garbage, he's like,
After
"Why
all
are you
that,
dating
yeah.
Another
him?"
favorite part of the first movie is Bella comes down the stairs. She has a huge cast on her leg, and she comes down the stairs in her prom dress. And Edward's like, "You're beautiful," or he says, "You're perfect." And it cuts to Charlie, and he's like, oh. He like rolls his eyes. It's so
Good dad.
good.
Good dad.
And they go to prom together and have a cute romance. And at this point, Bella's like, "Don't you think you should have let me become a vampire?" And Edward's like, "No."
She's like, "Please
No.
turn me, please. I want to be with you forever."
He's like,
Yeah.
"No."
God.
And then yeah, they have a perfect little prom scene, and then we cut to in the movie Victoria's watching them, and she walks down the stairs
Ah.
smiling evilly, and then the movie
Dramatically.
ends to set up that
Okay.
Victoria's pissed.
She's
That
because
James is
James
dead?
was her
James was
partner,
her lover,
her mate.
her mate.
Yeah.
So she's very upset that they killed James.
Well, I mean, once again, maybe we shouldn't be making excuses for men that think it's great to just hunt and track
it's like,
down
where
women.
were you helping James if he's your lover in
Yeah.
this, Victoria? You just like fucked off and let him do that. I guess she probably was like, "He'll be fine."
Yeah. This is his thing, I guess. We do also learn that James is actually the reason why Alice becomes a vampire.
Yeah, I know. I totally forgot that.
I don't think it was very clear in the books, and they don't really mention it at
It's
all.
not
in the movies,
mentioned in the movies.
But he did the same thing that he did with Bella and Edward, but with Alice and this vampire who really liked Alice. But instead of them killing James, the vampire turned Alice to prevent this, because once she was a vampire, the game was no
Got
fun.
it.
Yeah, that's just like background info. That's a weird connection. That
So
it's just
James
kind of
is
like
It's just like
an
weird
not
that
doesn't
it's-
really
is what I'm
matter.
hearing.
Yeah.
But it was good.
Or was
Alice
an
doesn't
asshat.
remember her human
Alice-
life at all, so she
yeah.
like learns about it from this weird interaction with James.
Yeah.
Weird.
Um.
Don't like James.
Well, so that's book 1 of Twilight.
I think that's the most dense one.
I was gonna
It's
say,
got a lot more going
That's dense.
on.
I think now that we've got a lot set up, that because I know we have a lot more to go through, but we can go through it much more quickly now that we have like the premise of Twilight and what's gonna happen from here.
Yeah, because when I was watching the movies, I was
Sounds
like,
like
oh,
good
not that much happens.
Not that much. I would say technically not that much happens in this entire series.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just lots of character
It's a,
drama.
it's a lot of
Yes,
like
it's a lot
thinking
of-
something is
yeah.
gonna
Yeah,
happen.
there's a lot that doesn't happen here. Woo! This is Liz coming at you with a future message. We didn't get through all of Twilight in this episode. We just did the first book, and there's so much more horrible, awful things to talk about. So you should definitely stay tuned for our second episode. We would like to thank Galestorm Kitsune for doing the art for this podcast, as well as Apagio for doing the intro and outro. Seriously, we didn't even get to talking about falling in love with a baby, a literal baby. So stay tuned for that if that sounds as horrifying as it is. See you next time.